Cordovez. I'm with Adam Schoenfeld from Bellagio, bringing you the scoop.
The final scoop.
At least for this stage. Maybe we'll be back if there's popular demand, but the World Series is coming to an end, down to the final table, and we're not there. We've done a bunch of shows. We've been living at Bellagio 2 months, and it's time to move on.
See you down the road.
We had fun, though, and actually I think we brought a lot of good luck to our guests, because Eric Seidel had never done anything, and then he was a guest.
He was a low-limit grinder, and then just what happened when his 8th gold bracelet. That was amazing, and I was very happy about that.
Scotty Wynn was an unknown, and he almost made the final table of the main event, and he finished second in another event.
I'm sad for Scotty because that would have been so huge for him to make another final table at this stage, and he just missed. And as you were describing to me earlier, he was nursing the short stack, and he's the master of that. And then finally he got a lot of chips, and then...
Well, when he was on the show with us, he talked about
short stack.
He's a great short stack player, and he talked about how not to panic, not to overplay, be patient, and he was, because he actually described a hand where he had pocket 8s on the button, and another player had raised, and he didn't feel he had enough chips to call the raise, and he didn't want to move in because it was, he still had enough chips to play, so he didn't play the hand. He would have flopped a set, but he didn't regret it because he was just playing his game. He ended up working up from about 1 million in chips to almost 16 million in chips. But I think there's a psychology, which I'm familiar with, which is you've been on the short stack for 3 days, now you have chips, and now maybe you lose some of your discipline. And he had a bunch of hands where he had top pair, and other guys had better than top pair, and he paid them off. And he finished 11th. And it would have been great for poker, too, because he would have brought more entertainment to that final table.
Yeah, it's too bad, but it was a good run by Scotty, and good run by you, by the way.
Thank you. But one last thing about Scotty, even though I hate to deflect any
with
praise.
With your glory, 67th place.
Any rare praise for me, but he took the microphone and he said, he thanked all the fans very graciously, and he said, thanks to all the fans, without you there's no Scotty Wynn. So I should have done that when I finished 67th. Right. I should have taken the mic and said, without you there's no Diego Cordovez, there's no scoop.
When you went out in 67th, the room just emptied.
It was fun, though, and the main event is a unique tournament. It's such a marathon that just to experience it and to see all the different mix of people with kind of different goals, some of them starting to really tire from all the exhaustion and mental, physical pressure, was pretty cool. And I wish I'd gone further, but by the same token, 6,400 people, it was pretty exciting.
And you outlasted 6,200 of them.
Yeah, actually 6,300 of them, and but yeah, it was pretty fun, and I learned something.
At my table on the second day, speaking about the pressure, a guy was actually just weeping for no reason.
Was he really?
No.
Oh, was it you?
Yeah, it might have been when I lost.
I don't know. This year, I hate to mix the live play and the tournament play. I think it's very hard, not just strategically, but when you're playing live, if a game's good, you want to keep playing it. You end up playing the whole night. Tournaments, they have their own schedule, and so you can't always eat when you want. I mean, everything is different. So this year I decided I'm just going to play the live games. Everyone said the live games here at Bellagio are great, which they are. And so I played those, and then right at the end, I said, well, I'll play, I got to play a few tournaments before the main event. So I ended up playing 4 and cashing in 3 with pretty decent cash.
Right.
So maybe I should have started earlier.
Yeah. And now it's over.
But now I have no regrets, although I wish the main event started again because I'm so excited.
But there are no, there are no more tournaments for the rest of the year in poker, so now you can't jump back in.
There are, but the last couple of years, I've only played the World Series, and I know you haven't played a lot either other than the World Series.
No, nothing.
And traveling around, I mean, I don't know how some of these guys do it, because traveling around now all over the world.
Right.
And here traveling around to Tunica and Atlantic City and LA, I mean, it's hardcore, especially if you don't live in
Memphis,
Vegas,
Peoria.
It's tough.
All the global hotspots.
Yeah, I'm worn out just hanging out here.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep playing on the internet and then come back next year.
Now, you've received lots of critical acclaim for your performances here on The Scoop. And when I see on the message boards, they're saying you've got the best monotone in the business.
One of the key aspects to the World Series is getting into a good sleep schedule, because you're away from home, you're in a hotel, tournaments go till 2 or 3 in the morning, especially with these Harrah's guys running them with their strange decisions, rulings. And my voice apparently is so soothing, and the monotone is so steady that a lot of people have complimented me that when they've had a long day and they're all wired up, they go home, they can turn on the scoop and then get their good 8 hours.
Now, on my side of the ledger, one of our fans on the message boards wrote that our show was hard to watch, painful to watch. Now, what I take that to mean was that I am painful to watch, but that is a function of, and we're going to resolve this in later seasons of the Scoop.
Right.
The set, as you know, we had 3 stools where, like, there'll be 3 dudes here,
right.
and I have to sit in the middle, and there's no room, and I'm all like this. So I think so even though I am interested in what they're saying, it's painful to watch because I was so uncomfortable being on the middle stool. Like right now, I feel like I got room to move.
Maybe that's it. Or it was just painful to watch because we don't have a makeup artist.
Well, yeah, we are suited for radio, but what are we going to do?
You were rolling in the main event, and it's not to harp on you, but I mean, wasn't it a lot of fun just seeing all the mix of people? I mean, there are people. I mean, even in day 5, you had guys who never even planned to play the main event, and maybe they took one shot at a satellite, or they won something online, or they just decided to take a flyer and spend the money, and it's pretty crazy, kind of what you see.
Yeah, I mean, I found it to be torture. It's not fun, the main event for me anymore, and the first day is 16 hours by the time you're done. Yeah. 16 hours, is that really necessary, as Mike Manisau points out, when you have 2 weeks to run the tournament?
It's a good way to weed out the people who aren't ready for it.
Or those over 22.
I'm more fascinated by people paying $10,000 or having $10,000 equity in the tournament who basically, some of them don't even know the rules, which is kind of a unique thing, and or don't know how blinds work or antes or whatever. And you don't see that every day.
I mean, $10,000 is, well, it might be a lot of money to us. To a lot of people, it's nothing now these days.
Perhaps.
I mean, the main event buy-in hasn't risen in 35 years.
Right.
So, could you imagine putting up $10,000 though in 1971?
Well, I think
that's like $10 million
some
now.
People, right. Some people really miss
with
out
the consumer
on the
price index.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but it might be, let's say, 100,000 now.
Right.
So at that stage, the guys who put up the 100,000 were the real big gamblers. Maybe there was a sprinkling of really wealthy guys,
right?
And even the pros who couldn't come up with that, because that was a lot of money, they had enough of a reputation and they were winning players that they could gather the money. I mean, now I realize, I'm sure that a lot of them had backers and partners and so forth. Now it's become a whole different thing, and the horse has kind of that aspect to it. But the main event is really a big American lottery, which is great. I mean, $10,000 is a lot more reasonable to acquire, and then you take your shot. And again, as in the last couple of years, we have a lot of amateurs, a lot of stories, a lot of guys just taking a shot at it.
Now, Dee, as you know, while you were triumphing with your 67th place, which is a triumph, by the way. I'm not. It sounds funny because we say 67th place, but that's 130 dimes, and it's a very good finish. I had my own triumph, as you know, during the past couple of weeks on one of the $109 nightly horse tournaments on PokerStars. 16 entrants, I triumphed.
No, that's pretty
horse,
good.
The mixed games are my new specialty. So I think I'm going to jump right into the $50,000 horse next year at the World Series, using that as a launch pad.
Well, if there are any potential backers out there, we're promoting that.
I've got that on my resume. Horse
maybe
champion.
Someone will step up and
put up 50 dimes.
And put up 50 dimes for you. I had a funny thing. I'd be interested if you had any funny experiences at the table. And again, I only played the 4 tournaments, but in the main event, I was playing on day 3 or 4. It might have been. I mean, now they all blend together, but pretty deep into the tournament, and this guy had a lot of chips. He must have had 600,000 or 700,000 in chips when the day started, and he built up a few more. And the hand came down, and I say this only because you'd think in the main event maybe things would be different from just your $2, $4 game online.
Right.
This guy comes in with a raise. Gus Hansen is on the button. He calls a raise, and now the big blind had a shorter stack, and he'd been playing very tight. He had not defended his blinds. He had not really been raising a lot of blinds. He just had one move in. He calls the raise too. Now the flop comes 7-8-9. So now
7-8-9.
The hero of our story, the guy with a lot of chips who was the initial raiser, checks, and Gus bets 22,000. And now the guy in the blind raised to 70,000, which was about half his stack. So this is a pretty strong statement because he's put in half his stack. He's raising Gus, who is not a timid player,
right,
and who certainly is capable of calling you down if he thinks he has the best hand or if
And
he has a good draw.
he still has the initial razor behind him.
He still has the initial razor behind him, and Gus had over $1 million in chips, so it's
Right.
not like he's afraid to put
Right.
another 50,000. Now our initial razor just cold calls the 70,000.
Cold call.
And Gus is out. Now the turn comes, and it's a small card, a deuce or something. And now this guy puts in the remaining half of his stack, and our guy now lifts his card up, just fuming, just the sweat pouring down, and he says he's got ace king,
Ace king.
and he just slams him into the muck, and he says, "Goddamn dealer, ace king 2 times and I don't hit." So first of all,
could you imagine? What are the odds on
Right.
having ace king
We
2 times
we need-
and not hitting? And
right, we need Bill Chen to
Yeah,
help us calculate
yeah.
that. So you only hit 1 out of 3 anyway. He calls the 70,000 cold, where he's either drawing dead or in a terrible position.
7,
overall.
8, 9 on the flop.
So now he looks at the dealer and he says, "How much longer are you going to be here?" And the dealer says, 15 more minutes. And he goes, "Oh, forget it then." And he stands up and just sits out.
This is like when I used to play at Garden City in San Jose
Yeah.
in the limit game. It's total irrationality, but this is deep in the main event of
Deep
the
in
World
main
Series
event.
of Poker.
Deep
Yeah.
in the main event. And you just see crazy stuff.
Of course, we know some tournament champions who act that way.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. We know guys
They think
who...
they've never hit ace king, even though they have 50 major titles to their name.
And guys who also are major champions who blame the dealers for their bad luck.
I mean, the dealers, now you agree, they are physically controlling the cards.
Right. This is the one difference. This is why I prefer the online play, where there's no dealer, it's just computer generated. Because here, the dealers decide who they like and don't like.
There
and
you
they just
have,
deal
yeah,
out
a lot of personal bias. The computer has no preconceptions.
So that was a little crazy, but there was a lot of that stuff. Now they're down to a final table, and most likely they'll be an amateur again. Or when I say amateur, actually, there are pros.
No, half
Or
those
just
guys
kind of
are
unknown
pros.
pros, yeah.
And then, of course, you have Lee Watkinson, who I think is a great player.
Yes.
And he's especially good with a big stack of chips, which he
Right.
has. And he's relentless.
And he has an advantage, which is he's, as far as I can tell, the only guy at the final table who has, kind of a big time experience where he's played at WPT final tables, World Series final tables, and dealt with those issues and the pressure and all that. There's a guy from England named John who I played with a lot on day 3, who I ran a line, was basically broke. He put in his last $500 to
In
play
a
the mega. He won the mega, and he wasn't kidding, because he already had a plane ticket to go home. He wasn't going to play the main event. He wasn't going to put up the money. He won that, and then he's rolling through, and he's got a ton of chips. I think he might be the chip leader, one of the chip leaders. Very nice guy, very British style, just like a real British street guy, it seemed like, and I liked him a lot. And I'm kind of rooting for him. I think it'd be fun to see him.
By the way,
do
that's
well.
having a ticket home. That's not broke.
No.
Broke is not having a ticket
Right,
home.
right. Hitching a ride.
Right.
So we're going to see how things play out the next couple of days. But it has been fun. And there was a lot of criticism, maybe kind of our last wrap-up. On a lot of shows, we were, and our guests, we were knocking Harris. And there's a lot to knock. I mean, overall, I could write a whole book about things that I would want to change. But the main event, I thought, had a very good structure, even with all the criticisms, having played through...
You had a lot of
the
play.
end of the sixth day, I was actually below average in chips almost the entire time, but I was never in a pressure panic mode. I mean, the structure allowed me to keep playing and keep finding spots and and keep surviving. And it was a pretty good structure.
Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I did.
I think, no, not you.
Oh,
Harris.
I'm always used to being insulted.
You're not the whipping boy in this case. Harris, it's horrendous, and this is emblematic of the Harris corporate mentality, which is short-term money-grabbing results.
Right.
No vision, no long-term strategy, no focus on competence, no focus on courtesy. Thanks, Harris.
But the main, but I'll say the main event, it was run pretty well. I mean, the main event is such a zoo that there were no disasters, at least none so far, that have taken place.
Right. Well, we don't know. Maybe we'll find out later, just like last year, that someone has an extra $8 million in chips.
Right. But to this point, at least,
and just while we're bashing Harris, they have 18 different variants of orange.
Well, I was going to get
chips.
to the negative, right? I mean, for the people that didn't play, the $5,000 chips and the $25,000 chips are almost identical. I mean, it's like orange and salmon colored, and now they introduced a $50,000 chip, which is also
Mauve.
which is kind of pinkish.
It's terrible,
So
and
that's
as
crazy.
we talked about yesterday, there's no that's not even a short-term money benefit.
No.
It's just
Well,
incompetence.
see, that's the thing. You know, a lot of people, they come up and they say, you know, look at these, you know, how much they're taking out of the prize pool. Look at the fees they're charging, and look at what they're charging for hamburgers. Well, who cares?
I don't care about any of that.
You know, we all have a choice. We can play or not play, and that's incidental stuff. In a
Let-
sense.
let me be-
But when a tournament, when the chips cause confusion, when the structures are poorly constructed, I played in a tournament where it was about 25 minutes to 2 a.m., and they said, we're going to quit play at 2 a.m. Okay, now everybody takes a 20-minute break. So I went to the
Right.
floor man and I said, so we're going to take a 20-minute break, come back and play for 5 minutes, and then we're going to spend 20 minutes bagging the chips.
Right.
And he said, that's the way we've been doing it. I go, now, you know, when somebody says that's the way we've been doing it, it means they don't have a good
real
argument,
reason.
a real argument. And the guy said, you know, just go back to your table or something like that. So that's just stupidity. That's just, you know, there's no...
Let me be perfectly clear, dude.
yeah,
I
I
don't-
haven't been very clear
No.
or unambiguous.
Even though that they have a terrible corporate strategy of short-term money grabbing, my issue is not that they're making a lot of money. Because
Right.
that's fine. It's my choice to participate.
And they actually are using that money they are reinvesting that money, marketing the event and trying to get more people. So that actually is pretty
That's
good.
fine, but the lack of trained personnel
Right.
and the attitude of the whole organization.
Those are my criticisms. I'll get out my last couple of positives. In the main event, the hand-for-hand took a full level of 2 hours. It was interminable, and that was driven by marketing because Milwaukee's Light or whatever were sponsoring some free roll, so they wanted to have 9 people, and also ESPN wanted the drama of the last guy. But you know what? They came on the mic and Jack Effel said we're adding an hour.
That
of
was a
play
good move.
at the same blind level. That was, you know, very responsive, very, very good. But what is not responsive is that every time I went up very politely, I mean, I wasn't one of these guys going up just yelling at him. I went up just as a player who's, you know, paying his entry fees with some suggestions, and they were just like, "Get away from here!
Yeah.
We don't want to hear it. We're not interested." We were at a table, and one guy complained that he came back from the break and one of his chips was missing. So this gigantic floorman stood behind the dealer looking over at us, and he said, you know, well, check the camera, whatever. And this other guy said, does this happen a lot? And this guy said, just play your chips!
And we've paid $10,000 to play in this event.
And we paid $600 right to their
in
coffers.
straight juice,
Right
yeah.
to their coffers. So who needs that attitude? And actually, there were other floormen, too, who I went up with on the break, and I'd say, you know, what's the break order? Or are you going to, you know, combine these? You know, it's just stuff like that. And they'd be like, you can't be in this area. You know, just,
No.
you know, stuff like that.
Harris has a horrible, horrible corporate culture and mentality.
Right.
That's the bottom line, D. I don't know why you're defending them.
When we were living in the Soviet Union in the late 70s,
Right.
we encountered a lot of this
A
stuff.
lot of that.
And
When
then
we were in
after-
the Central Soviet,
Yeah.
when you remember the Politburo.
Yeah, and after we emigrated here, we thought we were done with that.
Right.
And now it's
Right.
happening again.
At Harris.
That's a surprise. So that's our wrap up. You know, we're going back to our respective hovels, to the single room occupancy hotels where we live for $23 a day. But one day we'll be back, and maybe at another big tournament or at the World Series next year. But it's been fun, and
Good luck to you, D.
good luck to you. Good luck. Good meeting you.
See you next year
All
on
right.
The Scoop.
Thanks for joining us.